Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim's Special Edition. My name is Camel, and today we will be taking a look at all of the Easter eggs that can be found within the game. In case you are wondering, I did make an Easter egg video for Skyrim about 3 years ago. Essentially, in hindsight, it's garbage, and is missing most of the Easter eggs in the game. Hence, this new and improved version with literally over 100 Easter eggs. This video contains just the Easter eggs found within the base version of the game, meaning nothing from the DLCs is included in this video, but I do have videos covering those that you can check out. I am aware that this is a very long video, so I do have timestamps for each of the Easter eggs that can be found down in the description, along with links to my other Easter egg videos and my social media. Apologies if I mispronounce any of the foreign words throughout the video, and for the uninitiated, an Easter egg is an unexpected or undocumented feature in a piece of computer software or on a DVD, included as a joke or bonus. So while Easter eggs often are references to something, by definition they do not have to be. And finally, a friendly spoiler warning. But if you haven't played Skyrim by this point, a spoiler is the least of your worries. Starting out with a classic. Found just to the south of the Shrine of Periite is a small crevice created by the separation of two rocks. In here we can find a skeleton accompanied by a saber cat, which has been slain. This is a reference to one of the opening scenes in 2006's movie 300, where Leonidas leads a wolf to a narrow passage, then stabs it through the mouth with a spear. Now, because Bethesda Game Studios cut spears from the Elder Scrolls, the spear has been substituted with an axe. Unfortunately for this Leonidas, this is not Sparta, but Skyrim, and he couldn't handle it. Now, you're probably familiar with Alduin, the World Eater, of course the main antagonist of Skyrim. But did you know that Alduin is based off of a dragon from Norse mythology named the Níðhöggr, often anglicized to Nidhogg, thank the divines? It was a dragon of Niflheim that almost solely feasted upon the dead and chewed away at the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil, in turn attempting to destroy the world. Nidhogg was a symbol of death and destruction, trying to destroy what we all hold so dear, much like Alduin in Skyrim. If we head to Riften, we can find the Honorhall Orphanage. When we head inside, we will hear this.
Now, what do you all say?
We love you, Grelin. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your kindness.
Which is a reference to the musical Annie, in which the orphans were frequently asked, "What do you say?" And the response was always, "We love you, Miss Hannigan." Except that Grelod here, in Skyrim, has a torture chamber for the children. Don't remember that in Annie. Just outside the opening of Rebel's Cairn, there is a pile of stones, which is called a cairn, and thrust within its crown is a sword, of course making reference to the Arthurian sword in the stone. From a page of the same book, northeast of Bleakwind Basin, we can find a small pond marking the termination of the attached brook, from the midst of which an arm is penetrating the water, grasping a sword high above the surface of the pond. This symbolizes the famous lady in the lake, and the legendary sword Excalibur. Sadly, this sword bears no Excalibic traits, and all the water will probably rust the blade. And following straight from the pond to the lake, we have another reference to our aquatic maiden. The lake found within the hold of Falkreath, Lake Ilinata, has a small island in the middle of it. On this island, we can find the Lady Stone, literally rendering it the lady in the lake. And finally, for the Arthurian lore, during the quest ill met by moonlight, we must hunt down a white stag. This is also found throughout many Arthurian stories. The white stag symbolizes adventure and the hunt, similarly to its symbolism in Skyrim.
You see, my name is Barbas, and I have a problem I think you can help sort out.
We all know and love Barbas the talking dog, but did you know he is named after one of the 72 demons listed in the Ars Goetia? Barbas is described as the great president of hell, governing 36 legions of demons. He who takes the form of a lion and answers honestly. While Barbas in Skyrim takes the form of a dog rather than a lion, he does answer honestly, making up for Clavicus Vile's lack thereof. Barbas' name may also reference a dog from a 1977 USSR TV short cartoon in which there is a stray dog named Barbas or Barbosa, much like we encounter Barbas in-game as a stray dog. Now again, he might also be a reference to Barnabas, a talking dog who makes an appearance in the DC Sandman comic book series of the 1990s. This Barnabas makes snarky comments to his owner and companion, Destruction of the Endless. So it turns out old Barbas here is much more interesting than a talking dog, as interesting as a talking dog is. Ain't that right, Barbas? Oof, save yourselves, boys. Look, we've all heard of bearded ladies, but have you heard of bearded lady Draugr? Don't get too excited. Everything about it is as feminine as a rotted corpse can be. But then there is a beard on top of that. Very, very rarely you can run into one of these in Skyrim. I must say, it's a rather thick and luscious beard. Admittedly and ashamedly better than my own. Ah yes, now inside the Falkreath Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary there is a spider named Lys. Lys has its own little spider pit where we can find the skeletal remains of a couple of the victims. However, the really interesting part of this is the skeletal remains found within the pond. As we can see, this person was called Gaston Bellefort. Now this name is actually a three-way reference to the characters Gaston, Belle, and Fort from the classic Beauty and the Beast, which, while it was popularized by Disney, is in fact a classic French fairy tale first published in 1740. Now the home of the Greybeards, High Hrothgar, is named after Hrothgar, the real-life king of Denmark who was also a character in the epic poem Beowulf. This character, Hrothgar, also had a mead hall of his own named High Herot. Combining the two names, one is left with High Hrothgar, exactly what we have here in Skyrim. In a similar fashion, one of the Greybeards who resides at High Hrothgar in Skyrim is named Wulfgar. He takes his name from the Beowulf character Wulfgar, who travels to Hrothgar, the king of Denmark, in the Beowulf story. Instead, Skyrim's Wulfgar is living in High Hrothgar, the very building named after the king in which Beowulf's Wulfgar travelled to. It's as simple as that. Now we'll be heading to the Nordic afterlife Sovngarde for a time. So did you ever notice in your skills menu behind each category of skills there is a constellation reflecting them? Behind the magic based skills is a blue constellation making up a wizard, behind the combat based skills there is a red warrior constellation, and behind the more vagabond skills there is a green thief constellation. Well, did you ever notice that in Sovngarde, if you look up to the heavens, these very same ethereal figures can be seen. They are slightly harder to make out as they are shrouded in ephemeral astral waves, but they are watching over you. Now Sovngarde, the Nordic afterlife, has many similarities to Asgard, the home of the gods in Norse mythology, and just as Valhalla can be found within Asgard, within Sovngarde we can find the Hall of Valor, which, like Valhalla, is a mead hall where the slain Nord and Norse heroes and brave warriors drink their fill and feast eternally. And while we're up here, did you ever stop to look at the statues within Sovngarde? There's something just not quite right about them. Would you be made uneasy if I told you that the statues actually turn to face you while you're not looking at them? That's why no matter where you go in Sovngarde, it always seems like the statues are staring at you. That's because they are. For example, we're at the bottom of this staircase, we can see that all of the statues are facing us. They're all facing down the stairs. Well, if we head to the top of the staircase and sit around there for about 20 seconds, by the time we turn around, the statues are either in the process of turning around or have fully turned around to be looking at us. As we can see, they're all facing up the stairs, whereas a few seconds ago they were facing down the stairs. And they will only turn when you're not looking. This is likely a homage to the infamous Weeping Angels from Doctor Who, which are solid stone statues while you stare at them, but as soon as you look away they can move freely, and come after you, which they do. While these statues in Sovngarde can't move positions, it doesn't change their unforeseen rotations to face directly at us as any less haunting. Next, we have probably one of the strangest Easter eggs in Skyrim, which can be found within Dawnstar's Museum of the Mythic Dawn. In here, amongst various other artifacts and bits and bobs, we can find a ruined page from the Mysterium Xarxes, a tool of the main antagonist from the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. But we can actually open the casing, and while we can't interact with the page at all, if we apply any physical damage to it, well, this. It turns into a bucket. Why this happens? No one really knows, and while there are some theories, they don't hold water, ironically. Regardless, an amazing Easter egg that most others pale in comparison to. Now before we get out of here, the guy that owns the Museum of the Mythic Dawn, Silius Vesuvius, is likely a reference to Fallout New Vegas's Silas, a captured member of Caesar's Legion. Both of them wear red uniforms, both of them have the same name, both of them unfortunately die for a cause that didn't care for them, and they also kind of look similar. And of course, while Bethesda Game Studios didn't make Fallout New Vegas, Fallout is still Bethesda's Softworks IP. There is a book in-game called Kolb the Dragon. It has been written in the distinctive style of choose-your-own-adventure story. Instead of giving you a linear story, it gives you two options. So in a sense, you can carve your own path, making different choices and determining your ultimate fate. Well, I mean, they had to put that element of the game somewhere. Now in the Dark Brotherhood questline, we will encounter an assassin named Cicero. I'm sure you're all familiar with him. But did you know that he is named after the Roman philosopher and statesman Cicero, who was a close friend of Cassius, one of the assassins of Caesar, and openly endorsed the assassination after it had passed. Assassins everywhere. But Cicero's craziness doesn't stop there. Check this out. In the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, after completing the arena questline and becoming the grand champion of the arena, one will be cursed with the bosman known as the Adoring Fan, an ever-annoying little wood elf with no social awareness, who actually lived on to become a meme within the gaming community. Well, check this out. In one of Cicero's journals, he states that he posed as a starstruck fan to the Grand Champion during the, and I quote, arena contract. And then Cicero killed the champion while in the forest. This is of course a reference to the Adoring Fan from the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. However, I do believe this is the developers having a laugh, rather than Cicero actually being the Adoring Fan from the Elder Scrolls IV, as he would have to be over 200 years old and also change race from Bosma, as the Adoring Fan was, to Imperial, as Cicero is. So was Cicero the Adoring Fan? No. But his journal contains a little joke for the keen eye to spot. Now in-game we can find a book called Songs of the Return Volume 7. In here we can find that one of Ysgramor's 500 champions was called Cluey, who went by Lot when hiding his face. This is actually a reference to ex-Minnesota Vikings punter Chris Cluey, who played World of Warcraft for several years as a troll rogue named Lot. Famously, rogues have the ability of stealth in World of Warcraft, turning invisible. That's why it says the champion's name is Cluey as Chris Cluey, except he went by the name of Lot when hiding his face, as in when he was invisible in World of Warcraft he was playing his rogue Lot. Now within the Thieves Guild there is a member named Dirge. His name is actually a reference to Gambit from the X-Men, as Gambit used an alias which was nothing other than Dirge. This X-Men character, Dirge or Gambit, was also a member of a New Orleans-based Thieves Guild, just as Dirge in Skyrim is a member of the Thieves Guild. Now something I'm sure that all of you have experienced in-game is the very first dragon that you actually get to fight, the one that is found at the Watchtower of Whiterun. Well, his name is actually Myrmilnir, which is derived from Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. Backtracking and retracing your steps back to Riverwood, near here, we can find a cave called Ember Shard Mine. Now this actually refers to the popular Dungeons & Dragons podcast, which Mike Kraulik, Jerry Hulkins, Scott Kurtz and Wil Wheaton played in to showcase the new 4th edition of the game. In it, Scott Kurtz's character, Binwin Bronzebottom, refers to how his dwarven father had to stop drinking because the Embishard family of dwarves stole their mine. Now within Embishard Mine in Skyrim, we can actually find a skeleton that has a note on it, which references this character was going to stop drinking because Embishard Mine was going to collapse, just as Binwin Bronzebottom's father was going to stop drinking because the Embishard family stole their mine. In a completely similar fashion, in fact without even leaving the podcast, in the cave Liar's Retreat, you will find a Breton named Rad, dead on an altar. He is also referred to at one point as Longhammer, and he also carries a weapon of the exact same name, Longhammer. Now this is actually a reference to the 4th session of the Dungeons & Dragons Group Acquisition Incorporated, played by the members of Penny Arcade, PvP and Wil Wheaton, in which Wheaton's character is rescued from hell along with an NPC named Rad Longhammer. Again, this character here in Skyrim is called Rad, sometimes called Longhammer, with a hammer called Longhammer. Unfortunately, Rad here in Skyrim doesn't get saved from hell, or saved at all. You might love him, you might hate him, but we all know them, the East Empire Company. Now they are actually a reference to the East India Company, which was an English and later British joint stock company that ended up trading mainly with Qing China and seizing control of the Indian subcontinent, much like the East Empire Company in Skyrim has taken control of areas rather than simply trading with them. Ah yes, this one's actually quite sad, or happy, depends how you look at it. There is a character in Rorikstead called Eric. You can help him become an adventurer as a side quest. Once he has become this long-awaited adventurer, he will adopt the name Eric the Slayer.
Father says I should pick a name that describes what I really am, but nobody's going to hire Eric Greenthumb or Eric Hoe Pusher. No, I need a name that will put some fear in the hearts of my enemies. When I have some enemies, that is.
His name is derived from Eric West, whose internet alias was Imok the Slayer. He was a visitor to Bethesda's HQ during Skyrim's development. Now the reason he got a special trip to Bethesda's HQ was because he didn't have long left to live. But Bethesda was so impressed with Eric's knowledge of the Elder Scrolls for Oblivion that they gave him an in-depth tour of Bethesda's studio and decided to create a character named Eric in his honor. As, sadly, Eric West died of cancer 6 months before the release of Skyrim, hence Bethesda immortalizing him in the form of Eric the Slayer. So Eric rests eternally in peace in Skyrim. Moving along in the ratway underneath the city of Riften, the first 2 enemies you meet are a sneaky looking fellow named Druth and a barbarian fellow named Hunon Black Skeever. Now these 2 are actually references to the adventures of Fritz Lieber's Fafhrdir and the Grey Mouser. Druth here in Skyrim is an anagram of Fafhrdir, and Black Skeever is a play on Grey Mouser, and Hunon is an anagram of Newon, the world in which Fafhrdir and the Grey Mouser live. So there is a Dark Brotherhood member, Festus Krex. He may take his name from the Fallout New Vegas character called Festus, the robot found within the Sunset Sarsaparilla headquarters. Now while Bethesda Game Studios did not make Fallout New Vegas, they worked closely with Obsidian Entertainment during its creation, and of course Fallout is Bethesda's IP. Also, during the quest Death Incarnate, Festus Krex can be found like this. Looks like he's a bit pinned up at the moment. In all seriousness, Festus is pinned to the tree via a number of arrows lodged through him. This imagery is a reference to Saint Sebastian, who was tied to a tree and filled with arrows during Roman Emperor Diocletian's persecution of Christians. So just as the Roman Legion did this to Saint Sebastian while wiping out Christians, the Imperial Legion has done this to Festus Krex while wiping out the Dark Brotherhood. In Skyrim, as you would imagine, someone has written a book about trolls, more specifically killing trolls. This literary work is called Troll Slaying. Now as we can see, Troll Slaying's author's name is Finn. So if we take Finn and Troll, we end up with Finn Troll, the same name as a Finnish folk metal band, Finn Troll. Many of their songs also contain lyrics involving the fighting of trolls, which is of course the crux of the book in question. Now here's a damn good one. The quest titled Promises to Keep is a line taken from the poem titled Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, written by Robert Frost. Fittingly, the horse you receive once the quest has been finished is named Frost, after the author of the poem that the quest name was taken from. Even better though, during this quest you were able to get a birth certificate for the horse Frost. This mentions a horse named Sleipnir as the grandfather of Frost. Now Sleipnir is the name of the legendary eight-legged horse in Norse mythology, which famously belonged to Odin, father of Thor. Well, in Norse mythology, he was the All-Father. So a really cool Easter egg there. In fact, it's as cool as the horse you get, Frost. Yes, next we have a classic gag. Within Fort Dunstan, we can find a room that can only be described as the acting bathroom, next to which is a potion of True Shot, a potion that increases one's aim. For all of you out there who manage to still hit the toilet seat, well, this will make your accuracy better, and the lives of everyone you live with better. Now in a similar pipeline in a familiar fashion within the castle of Faldar's Tooth, where they're doing, well, you know what to the dogs. One of the lower levels we can find another bathroom type setup. Funnily enough though, we can find multiple chuckle-worthy potions, such as a Fortify Stamina potion, there's a potion of the warrior to help you fight that number 2, there's even a bottle of skooma if that helps, and my favourite of all, if you had something spicy the night before, there is even a resist fire potion handy to mitigate that ring sting. Now when we first enter the frozen hearth found in the city of Winterhold, the innkeeper will say this.
I'm sorry, could you describe the smell?
Like some horrible monster was turned inside out and then exploded. What did you do?
Now this is a reference to the cult 1999 movie Galaxy Quest, in which Jason Nesmith says, "Did I just hear that animal turned inside out and then exploded?" Very similar to the one we just heard in regards to Nelkar's experiments. Yes, a classic. Now after escaping Sidna Mine in favour of Thonar Silverblood, he will reward the Dragonborn and say this.
The Silverbloods pay their debts. You have my thanks.
Which is a reference to the infamous Lannister family from Game of Thrones. Both families are rich, political powers that own mines and share a catchphrase. And while the TV series Game of Thrones had not released during Skyrim's release, A Song of Ice and Fire, which Game of Thrones is based off, was first published in 1996, giving Bethesda Game Studios plenty of time to absorb influences forthwith. Now we'll be heading to the Dwarven Kingdom of Blackreach. While giant mushrooms aren't uncommon down here, we can actually find the game's largest glowing mushroom, the alchemical ingredient. Next to Alftan's elevator, there is a glowing mushroom that is a whopping 20 times the size of a standard glowing mushroom. For scale, here is the player character standing next to this gigantic fungi. Now don't be mistaken, that giant fungal spore isn't my personality, that is in fact a giant glowing mushroom. It is also harvestable like a normal glowing mushroom, however it's too high up to be reached, just like my dreams and aspirations. And while not giant, in the cave of Pure Water Run we can find the only known root in game that is double the size of a normal one. And while we did cover the giant known roots in the Dragonborn Easter egg video, this one is unique to the vanilla game and the largest found in the base game of Skyrim. Now in Solitude there is a brother and a sister, Gisli and Erika. It is likely that they are named after two of the three brothers from an old Icelandic tale named Gisli, Erika and Helgi. It's possible that Gisli and Erika were named in their memory and there may have originally supposed to have been a third sibling, Helgi. Unfortunately this Helgi doesn't make an appearance in game. Oh, now this one's cool. In Shalabor's maze, found within Labyrinthian, opening one of the shutters within the maze reveals a severed head with a gold coin in its mouth. This is actually making reference to Charon's obol, the ancient Greek and Roman custom of placing a coin in the mouth of the deceased prior to burial. This was done so the dead had payment for the ferryman at the River Styx. As Charon was the ferryman, and an obol was the coin, coming together for Charon's obol. Labyrinths are also famously used in Greek mythology as the home of the feared Minotaur, so a fitting location to find such a historical Greek reference. You probably figured this one out, but the Daedric quest, A Night to Remember, is a homage to the 2009 movie The Hangover. For this quest, you participate in a drinking competition with Sam Guavine, who turns out to be the Daedric Prince Sanguine. But when you wake up, you must retrace your steps of the night before in a wake of drunken tomfoolery, searching for your drinking buddy Sam. A plot relatively identical to the movie The Hangover. Now during this quest you marry the Hagraven Moira. It was rumoured that when you ask for the wedding ring back, she will refer to the ring as my precious and attack you, mimicking dialogue, physical attributes and actions of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Hate to break it to you all, trust me, I am as upset as you, but sadly none of this is true. I even went as far as to extract and sift through the game audio files, only to discover that this Easter egg is fake and does not exist. That line of dialogue does not exist in the game. However, when you do ask for the ring back from Moira, she will say this.
What? You want it for that hussy Esmeralda with the dark feathers, don't you? I won't let her have you.
This Esmeralda with dark feathers doesn't exist in the game, but she is a reference to Esmeralda from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, as Esmeralda from The Hunchback of Notre Dame was a love interest of multiple male characters, in a sense a heartthrob. She also had noteworthy raven black hair, much like Esmeralda, the Hagraven has black raven feathers. Esmeralda was also trialed to be hanged for being a witch, just like Esmeralda in Skyrim would be, a witch. And finally, the Hagraven that you do marry, Moira, is actually a nod, but more importantly an absolute laugh at the Fallout 3 character Moira Brown. The reason for this is because Moira Brown in Fallout 3, while not a fan favourite all round, those that were a fan of her were obsessed with her. They were upset at Bethesda Game Studios for not letting them be able to marry her in some sense. They wanted their character to be with her character, Moira Brown. Well, guess what, Moira fans? You got it. In Skyrim, you got to marry Moira. Not what you expected, was it? Just like my first. Actually, don't worry. Oh, now between moons on dark nights, a spectral figure that you have to wait for 4 hours to turn up can be observed riding on the road through Whiterun, terminating at Hamvir's Rest. This is the Headless Horseman, and while explained in the game as Ragnar the Red, the concept of the Headless Horseman comes from the book The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, published in 1820 by author Washington Irving, in which, of course, is the infamous Headless Horseman. And again, in-game, this particular Headless Horseman is believed to be Ragnar the Red, a character in popular folk songs around Skyrim. Now in Riften you can run into an Argonian called From Deepest Fathoms. She will hand over to you an object that has brought her great suffering. This is a Dwemer lexicon. As we can see, the lexicon is based off of the Lament configuration, or Lamekhan's box from the Hellraiser series. Both boxes share similar patterns and physical attributes, and both boxes also curse the wielders with hellish experiences. And if you haven't already, you should definitely watch Hellraiser. Ah yes, now there is a miscellaneous and unlisted quest objective to become the Thane of a certain or all holds. In the game files, the quest is labelled as making friends and influencing people. This is a reference to Dale Carnegie's best-selling self-help book titled How to Win Friends and Influence People, first published in 1936. Within the Silverblood Inn found within the city of Markarth, there is a man named Hrien who will say this.
My father Klepper is the one you want to talk to. I just clean up.
Now this is particularly ironic because in Icelandic his name means clean, which is exactly what he does within the inn. He cleans. And speaking of inns, if we head to the Winking Skeever in Skyrim's capital city of Solitude, in here we can find a sellsword named Belrand, which you can hire as a follower. Sometimes when exploring caves, he can be heard saying this.
When I was a boy,
My friends and I used to play Seek the Wampus in caves much like this.
Which is a reference to the classic computer game Hunt the Wampus, which first released back in 1972. While Hunt the Wampus received later and updated releases, its original version is so old in fact that the game was purely text-based, with nothing on screen but text. And I mean, people say Morrowind had bad graphics. If we head to the home of the Companions found in Whiterun and speak to Athos about why he joined the Companions, he will respond as such.
Fortune and glory, friend. Fortune and glory.
This is of course a famous line from the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, in which Indy drops the famous line, "Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory." Going back to the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary, there is a vampire named Babette. She's a homage to Anne Rice's 1976 novel, Interview with a Vampire. As in that book, Babette is the name of the protagonist's first love interest. However, Skyrim's Babette being trapped in the body of a young girl is actually a reference to another character from the book called Claudia, the protagonist's daughter, who is actually over 70 years old but is trapped in the body of a 5-year-old, just like Babette here in Skyrim, taking the phrase ankle biter to a whole new level. The leader of the Thieves Guild, the rascally racketeer himself, Mercer Frey, says,
"Then the die is cast, and once again my blade will taste nightingale blood,"
before he engages you in combat during the quest Blind Sighted. This is a reference to Julius Caesar's quote when he crossed the Rubicon and started a civil war, similarly to what Mercer is doing in-game. But before we go, this scene that we see the second we walk in has been modelled off the player's handbook of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. The cover features two thief-like characters that are attempting to remove a large gemstone in the right eye socket of a large humanoid statue, essentially identical to what we see here in Skyrim. Ah, more metal! During the quest Darkness Returns, you may find a book titled Nidstrom's Journal, detailing a plot by two individuals to try and infiltrate the dungeon and its priests. The two characters in question are Nystrom and Anders, a reference to Anders Nystrom, the guitarist and songwriter from Swedish metal bands Katatonia. In the last paragraph of Nidstrom's journal, we have, he mumbled some nonsensical phrases like night is the new day, and how he was the ghost of the sun. I have no idea what these cryptic sentiments mean, but hopefully during tomorrow's ritual, Anders and I put everything we've learnt to the test. In here are multiple references to Katatonia's albums and songs, and while I'm completely unfamiliar with the work, I'm sure one of you out there is thoroughly enjoying this, and it's making you catatonic. Climbing on through the list, in the town of Ivarstead there is a chap named Klimek. His name refers to the German verb erklimmen, which means to climb up in something, and also the Dutch verb klimmen, which means to climb. Entirely fitting, as Klimek here in Skyrim does just that. He climbs up to High Hrothgar to deliver goods to the Greybeards, another poor soul in Skyrim named after what they do. In my next life, I will be called Awful Pun, but in a similar namely fashion, the leader of the Companions, the Circle and the old wise werewolf Kodlak Whitemane. He takes his name from the word Vudkolak, or Vlokodlak, which means werewolf in many Slavic languages: Bosnian, Croatian, Czech, Serbian, Slovak, Slovenian, Montenegrin, etc. The suffix dalak is also used in Czech as a suffix for another shape-shifting fantasy creature, just as the case with Kodlak Whitemane, as he is a werewolf. Two other members of the Companions have similar names, as Farkas means wolf in Hungarian, and his brother's name, Vilkas, also means wolf in Lithuanian. Entirely appropriate, given they are both werewolves. Ah, fan favourite. Jumping on forward, there is a location known as Bard's Leap Summit. One can walk out onto the planks and leap off the edge into a pool of water and be met by a ghost of a bard. This Bard's Leap is thought to be a reference to the Assassin's Creed Leap of Faith, which is a leap made from a dangerously high location and often off protruding planks of wood, greatly resembling the very ones found here. Now the stone structure at the top is also said to resemble the Assassin's Creed logo. I've never been entirely convinced of this, but then again it is up to each of us to decide what is and is not an Easter egg. And I do know that this is definitely a fan favorite. Oh yes, get excited, because now we're moving into Lord of the Rings territory. Firstly, the city of Whiterun greatly resembles Edoras, the capital city of Rohan. Both cities are built atop a bluff with the palace at the top of the hill. Whiterun also bears a horse on its banner, the same as Rohan's. Within this very same city, Whiterun, there is a legendary tree named the Gildgreen. This is modelled off of the White Tree of Gondor. Both trees also share a similar fate. In The Return of the King, a conversation transpires in which Eowyn and Eomer, while discussing Merry, a hobbit, say the line, "It is not his heart that I doubt, only the reach of his arm." This is intentionally referenced when you, the player, are trying to join the companions, while Vilkas and Kodlak discuss the player's worthiness, as you'll hear here.
It makes no difference. What matters is their heart.
And their arm.
A lovely nod to Lord of the Rings, undoubtedly something that greatly influenced Skyrim. And once again, in Whiterun, after the Battle of Whiterun, Hadvar or Raldolf, depending on which side you chose, one of them will be there, but if you speak to them after the battle, they will say this.
I'm pretty sure I killed more than you. I was counting.
Now I mean, come on, we all know what this is. This is a direct reference to the ongoing competition between Gimli the dwarf and Legolas the elf throughout the Lord of the Rings series, where, of course, both of them count and compare how many enemies each of them has slain during any given battle. Back down underground, within the ancient subterranean Dwemer city of Blackreach, there is an interior cell named the War Quarters. In here we can find 7 small beds, filling a room quite nicely. Up the stairs we can also find one larger bed by itself. So, first off, some people believe that this is a reference to the 7 dwarf kings who were given rings of power in the Lord of the Rings. Of course, with the 7 beds representing one of the 7 dwarves, and the singular bed representing the one ring to rule them all. This is entirely plausible given that we are inside a dwarven city. Another likely reference lies within Snow White and the 7 dwarves. Of course, the 7 smaller beds representing the 7 dwarves, and the single larger bed representing the human Snow White. And as we know, she likes to have a snooze. And again, backing this up, it's found within a dwarven city. The third less common theory is based on the arrangement of these smaller beds, as they mimic the layout of the sacrificial altars seen in the movie Alien vs Predator. And while I feel like this reference is unlikely and I find the other 2 much more likely, I cannot deny that these beds in here definitely do resemble the formation of the sacrificial altars in Alien vs Predator. But of course it is open to each of our interpretations. And of course, one of my favorites, in the ancient underground metropolis of Blackreach, there are many things to catch your eye, but one thing that you can see from pretty much anywhere in Blackreach is the giant orb hanging from the ceiling. This can be spotted easily by its huge size and its contrasting orange glow compared to the blue theme of Blackreach. And while you may know that the orb exists, did you know this?
Force roll!
Amazingly, if one uses the Fusrodar shout on the orb, a dragon named Wulfgar will be summoned. From where? Who knows? This fellow is a reference to Smaug from Tolkien's book The Hobbit, published in 1937. And the reason I reference the book is because the Hobbit movies had not been made at Skyrim's release. Both Smaug and Wulfgar are dragons, now ruling over empty dwarven cities. And I mean, even if a developer came out tomorrow and said that Wulfgar is not a reference to Smaug, I would still consider him a great Easter egg. I mean, who thinks to shout at the orb? That would be completely out of the ordinary. And finally, for the Lord of the Rings, inside the Nordic ruin Angervund, before heading down the secret staircase, if we take a moment and look behind the pillar, we'll find an open treasure chest. Now already this is strange, how often do we see an open treasure chest? Inside it, we can find a severed hand, a broken sword, and a golden ring. This references or even recreates the opening scene from the 2001 Lord of the Rings film, The Fellowship of the Ring, in which Isildur, son of Eladin, takes up his father's broken sword Narsil and cuts off Sauron's fingers, along with the one ring to rule them all. They went with what they could here in Skyrim, but they got pretty close to making a perfect recreation, and it's obvious once you know it's here. The broken sword is Narsil, the golden ring is the one ring to rule them all, and the severed skeletal hand is the severed fingers of Sauron. And also found within this dungeon, down in the catacombs, we can find 4 giant canis roots. Now normally a canis root is a small shrub about ankle high, but these fellows have grown to the full size of the player character. What it is about this catacomb that's making them grow so tall, I don't know. And back to Whiterun, during the quest Salt for Arcadia, you'll have to deliver some frost salts to Whiterun's alchemist, Arcadia. She comments on the salts as such.
Ah, splendid, splendid. It's for a special brew I'm working on. A love elixir like none other. Maybe I'll test it on Hrothgar first.
This is a nod to the 1992 movie Love Potion No. 9, where the love potion turned out to be concentrated salt, the exact same ingredient used in Arcadia's love potion. I'm sure you've all run into this guy, Maik the Liar, the reoccurring character whose comments are references to events and features of the game, both new and removed, jokes, Easter eggs. While I must admit he has become less fourth wall breaking here in Skyrim, classically like in Morrowind, Maik acts as a direct conduit between the developers and the player, addressing issues such as multiplayer. However, Skyrim's version of Maik is much more tame. He's been house trained. He will just throw out funny little lines from now and then, most of which are based off old Elder Scrolls memes. Now, there is a woman that can randomly be encountered while out and about, provided you have finished Sheogorath's Daedric quest, as this mad woman is a follower of Sheogorath, and will even ask you to use the Wabberjack on her. However, interestingly, she carries a pair of tongs. This is actually a reference to the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion's DLC Shivering Isles, as there is a quest in which Tove the Unrestful asks the hero to find calipers and tongs. It would appear that this mad woman was sent on a similar quest in the name of the mad god, Sheogorath. However, calipers do not exist in Skyrim, so she's probably been looking for quite some time. Let's be honest, she probably wants Alduin to end the world, and finally finish her quest for calipers. Now east of Frostflow Lighthouse, frozen into the side of a glacier, we can find a mammoth, likely making reference to the very rare real-life occurrence in which a frozen mammoth is found. But this mammoth in-game is actually filled with arrows and ballista bolts, which appear to be of dwarven origin, hinting that the Dwemer may have killed this very beast. The last thing this mammoth knew was the fury of the Dwemer. And speaking of mammoths, have you ever just taken a couple of minutes out of your day to inspect the back of a mammoth skull? No? Well, we're about to. Only after a few seconds of inspection, we will notice that the back of a mammoth skull sure looks similar to Darth Vader's helmet from the Star Wars franchise. And to be completely honest, I have no idea if this was intentional. However, it is undeniable. While it is probably just what the back of a mammoth skull looks like, it really does look like it's going to tell me it's my father. Star Wars Easter egg mere coincidence? I don't know. Although I do feel a disturbance in the Force. Our classic, found to the north of Sleeping Tree Camp, which I've made an extensive video on by the way, we can find the skeleton of a mammoth. But if we take a closer look, we'll spot that there is actually a human skeleton inside it. This is likely a reference to either the Futurama episode Less Than Hero, in which an elephant eats a tour guide, or a nod to Moby Dick, the whale, which notoriously destroyed ships and in the process swallowed humans. Either or, it's a pretty cool little find. I am sure that you are familiar with the Mask of Clavicus Vile, But did you know that the Mask of Clavicus Vial was based off the horned helmet crafted for a young King Henry VIII by master armor craftsman Konrad Susenhofer? It was crafted in the year 1511 and was commissioned by the Holy Roman Emperor. Henry was known to wear it on occasion in public to inspire his people with his ever-charming helmet. Oh, the irony. At the peak of Tamriel, the throat of the world, the highest mountain in all of Skyrim and all of Tamriel, right near its peak, we can find a pickaxe lodged firmly into the stone. It is titled the Notched Pickaxe. Now, there are two completely feasible explanations behind this. Firstly, it is named the Notched Pickaxe in reference to the creator of Minecraft, Marcus Pearson, better known as Notch. The game Minecraft also has a very iconic pickaxe that is used throughout the game. Todd Howard, the executive producer of Skyrim, also states in an interview that he and the entire team are massive fans of Minecraft. So finding a notched pickaxe lines up perfectly with Minecraft and its creator. Skyrim and Minecraft also had planned to be officially released on the exact same date, 11/11/11. However, Minecraft's official release date was pushed back a week. Marcus Notch Pearson and his company Mojang and Bethesda had some lawsuits back and forth. Basically, the crux of it is there's a lot of history between Notch, the creator of Minecraft, and the Skyrim guys. Now, the second explanation behind the notched pickaxe is the English mountaineers George Mallory and Andrew Sandy Irvine, who disappeared while climbing Mount Everest in June 1924. While recently Mallory's body was found, the only discovery made for 75 years and several search attempts was a marked pickaxe, likely belonging to Irvine, a few hundred yards from the top. So just as a marked pickaxe was found near the top of the world's highest mountain, Mount Everest, in Skyrim we can find a notched pickaxe near the top of Tamriel's highest mountain, the throat of the world. Both theories are completely viable, and it's likely the notched pickaxe is a combined Easter egg, rather than being exclusive to either one of the theories. Hermaeus Mora has a Daedric artifact called the Ogma Infinium. It is a book within which elaborate and esoteric symbols can be found. Now, here on the right page, we can actually find the ancient Icelandic symbol known as a Vegvisir, a magical stave intended to help the bearer find their way through rough weather. Why it's in the Ogma Infinium? Probably because it looks cool. However, on the other page of the book we have this symbol, which some have likened to the top-down view of the College of Winterhold. And while I must admit they do look quite similar, it's not as similar as this. Would you look at that? The Ogma Infinium and the top-down view of the Imperial City in Cyrodiil match up perfectly. Whether either of these similarities was intentional, who knows, but they are undeniable, especially the Imperial City one. But for now, we'll want to head to the ancient Dwemer city of Markarth. Once here, inside Endon's house, we can find a shelf at the back of his bedroom. On the bottom shelf, sliced goat cheese, a slaughterfish egg, a row of garlic, and some glow dust are arranged to look like a scene from Pac-Man. In this case, the goat's cheese and slaughterfish egg are Pac-Man, the garlics are Pac-Dots or pellets, and the glow dust is either a power pellet, fruit, or a ghost. But regardless of specifics, it's an awesome Easter egg. While also in Markarth, during the Daedric quest, the House of Horrors, at one point, the house will appear to become possessed with the power of Molag Bal. Similarly to the 1982 movie Poltergeist, the chairs on the table will take on a haunting formation, letting you know the supernatural have been present. This chair formation has of course been influenced from the chair formation found within the movie. Tooting our flute all the way through the Easter egg list, during the quest Dampened Spirits, we will encounter a man named Hamelin, who has a trained army of skeevers at his disposal. Now, Hamelin is likely a reference to the Ratman's Notebook, a story that inspired the 1971 movie Willard, where a social outcast befriends and trains rats to exact revenge against his colleagues. However, the name Hamelin is an allusion to the Pied Piper of Hamelin, who famously removed all of the rats from the town of Hamelin. But after not being paid, the Pied Piper then led the children away just like the rats he got rid of. So this Hamelin is a double Easter egg tied into one, with common themes running through both rodent nests. South of Windhelm, there is a tavern called the Braidwood Inn. Its name is an Easter egg and refers to a motel in Braidwood, Illinois, from the comedy movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, starring Steve Martin and John Candy. In Skyrim's capital city, Solitude, along with gorgeous views, we can find the Bard's College, a school for bards, where they learn the instruments and songs of Skyrim. Now, there is a collection of texts sought after and revered by the Bard's College called the Poetic Edda. This name actually comes directly from Norse mythology, or not even mythology, but in Old Norse culture, as in real life there is a mass collective of Norse legends and tales that together are called the Poetic Edda, or Poetic Eddas, exactly the same as what we find here in Skyrim. Now, also here in the Bard's College, there is a character named Aya Aria. Her name is a play on the musical term aria, which means melody or tune. Specifically in operas, it is an elaborate melody accompanied by one single voice. Bards of Skyrim seem to only perform as a solo act with one instrument, so given she's a bard in Skyrim, she actually does exactly what her name means. Ascending on through to Skyrim's main quest, we'll be sent to the Nordic ruin of Skaldafin to gain access to the portal leading to Sovngarde, the Nordic afterlife. Now, the name Skaldafin is a reference to Skald the Norn. In Norse mythology, the Norns dictated the destinies of gods and men, just like me. In poems, Skald is also referred to as a Valkyrie, one who chooses who will die and who will live in battle. These Valkyrie then take the slain warriors to Valhalla, which is very similar to the Hall of Valor in Skyrim that we explored earlier on in the video. It's entirely fitting, as this Nordic ruin of Skaldafin acts in the same way as a Valkyrie does in Norse mythology, taking people to the afterlife with its portal. Speaking of portals, and speaking of Skaldafin, this may be my favorite Easter egg in Skyrim, except for the last Easter egg in this video. So, in Skaldafin, just before you exit and go through the portal to Sovngarde, there is a room off to the right that no one would ever walk into. In this room, there is a fireplace. And just like in Game of Thrones and The Lord of Light, if you stare into the flames long enough, you will see something. A Wiggles song perhaps. Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato. A potato, a boiled cream tart, and 5 pieces of charcoal, hidden at the back of the glowing embers of this fire in the fireplace in a room that no one would ever walk into. What a strange thing. Well, with a bit of research, one would discover that this potato and its accompanying parts resemble Portal 2's character GLaDOS in her potato battery form. I personally am thoroughly impressed with this Easter egg. It's well hidden, it's got a lot of effort put into it, and it's an awesome reference. Who made this, or even who found this? To be honest, you would need a portal to find it. Undoubtedly an amazing Easter egg viewed by so few. Well, hopefully this video will change that. During combat, one may hear Brynjolf exclaim this.
So, it's to the pain then.
This is a reference to Wesley's famous threat to Prince Humperdinck in The Princess Bride. I won't go into too much detail, but Prince Humperdinck says let's fight to the death, and Wesley says no, let's fight to the pain, and then goes on to explain that the pain is much worse than death. An absolute classic if you've seen the movie. Now, up in the mountains behind Helgen, there is a cave named South Fringe Sanctum. Here, we can find a red fox in a cage, or not in a cage, as often is the case. This little fella is called Pumpkin. Now, Pumpkin here is actually a reference to Pumpkin, a pet mole rat that can be found in Fallout 3, who, by the way, was a reference to the dog found in the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion called Pumpkin, who, for some reason, is listed as an honorary knight of the Knights of the Thorn. In a strangely similar fashion, Pumpkin here in Skyrim is listed under the Necromancers faction. Is this a Halloween Easter egg? A Necromancer fox called Pumpkin? Nonetheless, it's cool to see Pumpkin live on through Bethesda Game Studios games. Now, something you may have never come across lies hidden within the well that can be found in the center of Whiterun's marketplace. The reason you've probably never seen it is because you have to use console commands to clip through the well to discover that there is in fact a ring down here. This ring in the well is likely a reference to the Mages Guild quest Shadenhall recommendation found in the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. in which the player character is tasked with retrieving a ring that has been lost down the Guildhall's well. And to be honest, this one in Skyrim is about as much as a pain to get to. Now sometimes during a fight or a brawl, any character that uses the drunken male voice will say this.
Remember, hit the one in the middle.
This is the advice given by Paulie in Rocky 4 to help Rocky overcome double vision, which of course, if you've been clocked in the head, is a side effect of a fight. Now right below the very first Easter egg of this video, tucked away under a rock shelf, we can find a totem of Pereite, which is an unmarked location to the southeast of Pereite's shrine. Now this location actually bears a reference to Romeo and Juliet, as we can find two people dead alongside poison and a dagger. Just as Romeo poisoned himself and Juliet, believing him dead, killed herself with a dagger, we find the same here. Romeo and Juliet were also considered, and I quote, a plague to both your houses. Fitting, as Pereite is the Daedric prince of plagues and pestilence. And keeping with the Romeo and Juliet theme, in Whiterun there are two prominent and rivaling houses, House Greymane and House Battleborn. John Battleborn and Ulfina Greymane actually have a romantic relationship, one that of course their opposing houses do not agree upon, mimicking the relationship that Romeo and Juliet had. Galloping on through, during the Dark Brotherhood quest, A Cure for Madness, there is a stage in which the fan favourite Shadowmere resurrects from the pool of murky water. Not that you'd ever know this, but in the game's scripts, the quest objective stage for this event is labelled as Objective 666. This particularly stands out, given the above and below objectives are 19 and 25. 666 doesn't really fit in the number sequence. Now this 666 is referencing the number of the beast. In modern culture, this represents or symbolizes evil, or more specifically the devil. Of course, 666 being a fitting number for the immortal and evil horse, Shadowmere. Now at the College of Winterhold, there is a Bosmer named Enthir. He's a bit of a sneaky character who can get you things that you shouldn't be allowed to get, if you know what I'm saying. When you talk to him, you have a speech option that says, I understand you're an elf who knows how to get things. This speech choice is a reference to the 1994 film adaptation of Stephen King's The Shawshank Redemption, in which Adam says to Red, I understand you're a man who knows how to get things. But I must admit, Enthir here in Skyrim sells more than toothbrushes and rock hammers. Prepare to go a little bit mad, because during the quest The Mind of Madness, we will encounter Sheogorath, the Daedric Prince of Madness. He can be found having a tea party in the middle of a forest. This is a reference to Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, in which the Mad Hatter is encountered in an identical manner, although the Mad Hatter had some friends. Now during this same quest, we may hear Sheogorath say this.
Yes! Stanley, the talking grapefruit from Passwall! Ha ha!
Now while Passwell is an actual place that we experience in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion's DLC, The Shivering Isles, the talking grapefruit? What's that about? Well, Stanley the Talking Grapefruit is actually a reference to Stanley the Watermelon from Adventure Time, a popular cartoon, also popular amongst adults, as it has rather obscure qualities like a watermelon named Stanley. Now, Stanley the Talking Grapefruit could also be a reference to Stanley and the Talking Pineapple, a video in which a man named Stanley meets a talking pineapple. Pretty self-explanatory title. Regardless, hopefully one day we get to meet Stanley the Talking Grapefruit of Passwell. Now, if we stand near Sheogorath too long, we might hear him say this.
Do you mind? I'm busy doing the fish stick. It's a very delicate state of mind.
This is a reference to the fishy stick meme, which began on Bethesda's official forums and went on to become a running gag in the Elder Scrolls games. We can even see it referenced in Morrowind's Easter egg video. And while in this Mind of Madness, we will witness Plagueis's confidence and anger manifest as actual beings which will fight each other. This conflict of emotions, symbolized as physical beings, is actually a reference to the Red Dwarf episode, Confidence and Paranoia, in which Dave Lister's confidence and paranoia are manifest into human form due to a mutated space disease, during which time his confidence and paranoia strive to undermine each other and eventually end up destroying one another, much like Pelagius's confidence and anger are doing here in Skyrim. Within the frozen Dwemer city of Alftan, near the entrance, we can find a cat named Jadar. Upon spotting the Dragonborn, he will say this:
"Who is this, brother? Another of the smooth skins looking for food?"
He will call you, the player character, a smooth skin, even if you're Argonian and even if you are a Khajiit. Now this is a reference to Bethesda's Fallout games, in which the irradiated, hideously mutated humans called ghouls refer to normal humans as smoothskins, just like Jadar does here in Skyrim. Now Lucien Lechance does make a return in Skyrim in the form of the Spectral Assassin, and he can be heard saying this:
"I live again."
Which is a direct reference to the 1992 film Army of Darkness, in which the evil Ash is resurrected and says the exact same line in the exact same ominous fashion. He also says something else Star Wars related, which we'll get onto in a minute. But for now, Star Trek. In the village of Ivarstead, there is a woman named Temba Widearm. Her name is a reference to the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Darmok, where one of the often repeated phrases throughout the episode is Temba, his arms wide. This phrase has been reduced down to Temba Widearm, the character's name here in Skyrim. We can also find a book called Great Harbingers. Sirok the Lofty is listed as the first harbinger of the companions to be an outsider. This name alludes to Sirok Lofton, the actor that played Jake Sisko in the television series Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is actually a damn good show. And following along, at the College of Winterhold, specifically inside the Arcanium, if we speak to the Ozma librarian, Urag Grow Shub, he can be heard saying this:
"But at the same time, all of it is true. Even the falsehoods. Especially the falsehoods."
It's a bit complex, but this is a homage to an exchange between Garak and Bashir in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, in which Bashir asks which stories were true and which ones weren't, to which Garak responds, "My dear doctor, they're all true. Even the lies? Especially the lies." While not an exact quote, Urag Grow Shub definitely goes suspiciously out of his way to make it sound like that line of dialogue. Ba 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 ba. Inside of Bleak Coast Cave, there is a skeleton hanging upside down from the ceiling. Below the skeleton is a glowing sword. This is of course a reference, a classic reference, to Star Wars Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke Skywalker was caught on Hoth and hung from the cavern's ceiling. There is also a frost troll that roams these halls, which takes place of the infamous Wamba. And of course, the glowing blue sword takes place of Luke's lightsaber. Sadly, it looks like this version of Luke got cold feet, didn't use the Force, or have their handy telekinesis spell. A severe case of the cold shoulder. As mentioned a minute ago, if you travel with the ghost of Lucien Lechance in the form of the Spectral Assassin, he will sometimes say this:
"There is a disturbance in the void,"
which is very similar to the phrase, "I feel a great disturbance in the Force." Of course, from the Star Wars movies, which is often said by Force wielders. Inside of Frostfruit Inn, found in the township of Rorikstead, that same chap that we met earlier on in the video, Eric, before becoming an adventurer, we can hear him begging his father, "Please, please let me be an adventurer," to which his father replies with this:
"The only thing I'm afraid of is wasting my life on this farm."
Yes, that's your mother's side of the family talking. Just stay on for one more season, that's all I ask.
Now this line of dialogue is a reference to Uncle Owen's conversation with Luke in Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. And grabbing this next one by the horns, when we come across this bridge within the Reach, if it is your first time visiting the location, we will notice two goats on the bridge. And if we get a bit closer, we can witness them running off the bridge, and then a third goat will join them from a path leading down to the water. If we have a look where that third goat came from, we can see something strange underneath the bridge. It is in fact the dead body of a troll. A bridge, 3 goats, a dead troll. This is of course a reference to the fairy tale, 3 Billy Goats Gruff, where a troll is defeated by a trio of goats. as under the very same bridge we can find the dead troll. A similar Easter egg was found in my Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion's Easter egg video with a suicidal troll, but you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. Now back to Sovngarde real quick. The towering bridge guard of Sovngarde, Sun. His character is based off of Modgod from Norse mythology, who guards the realm of Hell, which is the underworld. Much like Sun and the Whalebone Bridge, in Sovngarde, Modgod is similarly stationed at the Gjallabru, which translates to Gjol Bridge. Back down to Tamriel. Here in the ancient city of Windhelm, not only do we have beautiful Atmoran architecture, but we have something else Atmoran that many miss. Next to Windhelm's graveyard, there is what is known as the Memorial Wall of Windhelm. If you take a closer look, each brick boasts the name of one of the first 500 companions that came from Atmora to Skyrim with Níðhöggr during the Merethic era. An awesome detail that I absolutely love, and I'm glad I could share it with you. But it's just another brick in the wall, we gotta move on. Also here, in Windhelm, there is an interesting museum known as Calixto's House of Curiosities, which is home to an array of interesting items. Among them is the legendary Book of Fate, that when read, is completely blank, proving my point that fate doesn't exist. There's also the mythological cutlery, the soup spoon of the Atmoran hero Níðhöggr, and it's actually a fork. What's next, Vivek's soup chopsticks? And written in a similar ink to the Book of Fate, just inside the location, White River Watch, Ulfr the Blind sits reading his favourite book. Again, that's Ulfr the Blind. So, given he's blind, his book not only lacks pictures, but lacks words too. I mean, a book without pictures is something, but a book without words? Come on. I guess he's trying to figure out what his fate is. Oh, now this is a good one. The blacksmith in Whiterun, I'm sure we're all familiar with him, we've been here a billion times. Ulfberht Warbear. Well, he actually takes his name from the Ulfberht swords. These were a high quality, you could call it brand of swordmen in Scandinavia during the Viking Age. Swords dating between the 9th and 11th century were found stamped with this name, likely the name of the smith that made them. So, in an ever-fitting fashion, the smith of Whiterun, Ulfberht, has taken his name from a famous ancient Viking blacksmith brand, Ulfberht. Oh, another good one that no one knows. While you learn the first whirlwind sprint shout from the Greybeards, when you encounter the word wall containing the second whirlwind sprint shout word, there is a hidden Easter egg in the dragon text, which reads as Non vul bron daman da rot dolphin for dis broma oblivion lust nid named spanvadin bane. From Dovizul to English, this translates to Noble Nord, remember these words of the Whorefather. Oblivion hath no fury like a shield maiden scorned. This is a play on the adage, Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, which was coined by William Congreve in his play The Morning Bride, first published all the way back in 1703. I will also add that this Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned is actually a misquote, as the line from the original text reads as Heaven has no rage like love turned to hatred, nor hell a fury like a woman scorned. So while the popular quote is actually a misquote, the gist remains the same, along with the word wall Easter egg. And speaking of Williams, when we enter the first hall of Swindler's Den, there is a practice dummy with a red apple perched atop its head. This is a reference to the Swiss story of William Tell, who had to shoot an apple off of his own son's head. Risky business. Well, I suppose it depends what your son's like. It would be tough if he was the apple of your eye. Penultimately, during the quest Proving Honor, the companion Farkas says this.
Not everyone, but all the circle are. It's a secret to everybody.
While it makes perfect sense within the context of what just happened, it's a secret to everybody is a phrase popularized by the Legend of Zelda video games, and it is now used widely within gaming communities, though few know of its origin, funnily enough. Originally, this line came from the secret Moblin from 1986's The Legend of Zelda. And this last one's gonna bug you. Finally, because you've all been so good in watching this video, a special treat for you. It may bring relief to some and frustration to others. Regardless, it is the truth. The infamous bugs in jars. Just to get everyone caught up to speed here, around Skyrim one can find 5 different bugs in jars. While these are cool and collectible, the inside of each jar lid has several letters or symbols on them. That's it. No explanation, no quest attached, just a mystery. Because of this, there are entire websites devoted to cracking the bug codes of Skyrim. Theories range from, well, anything you can think of. People have sent themselves mad trying to translate the hidden message from the symbols on the bug jars. Translating, decoding, decrypting. Well, over the last 4 months, I have finally got an official answer as to the story behind the bugs in the jars. I was sick of the speculation and decided to go straight to the source. I spent quite some time tracking down all of Skyrim's level designers, and eventually I heard back from one of them. Hey Ryan, can you please help me shed some light on the letters on jar lids in Skyrim, or at least point me the right way? Much love. Amazingly, Ryan, one of Skyrim's level designers, replied, Camel, you're going to be really disappointed when I tell you they don't mean anything. I think the artist wanted the design team to put in a ton of work for some half-baked idea they had with it, a typical occurrence at Bethesda Game Studios. And the art never changed after we said no. Relief? Frustration? What do you feel? The bugs in jars and the symbols on their lids are nothing more than a scrapped quest idea. The art team had a grand idea for the bugs in jars, the rest of the team said, no. And thus, the beginning stages of their quest remain in-game with the bugs in jars and the symbols on the lids. That is it. Nothing more, no grand design, no Illuminati confirmed, it's nothing more than a scrapped quest. I have a great sense of completion and also a great sense of sadness. Again, this news will bring relief to some and great frustration to others. It's nothing more than an idea that was never finished. Or that's what they want us to believe. But make of it what you will, I believe Ryan Jenkins, Skyrim and Fallout 4's level designer, he's the man with the knowledge, and with that it's time to bug off. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I've been Camel, and this has been my final Easter egg video for Skyrim. I do hope you thoroughly enjoyed it and learnt something new about the game that we all love and cherish. Please share this video with your friends so they can experience the full depth of Skyrim's Easter eggs. Please leave a like, leave a comment if you'd like to see more videos like this one, and subscribe. It helps me know that people are interested in these kind of videos and in the long run will result in more of them. Other Easter egg video links can be found in the description. Down there are also links to my social media. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, and if you'd like to support the channel in a more personal way, you can become a heroic patron on Patreon. As I'm sure you know, all of my time and energy goes into making these videos that I create for you to enjoy, so your support is most appreciated and welcomed in any and all forms. So feel free to check out the playlist on screen. Thank you very much for watching, thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.